Hey, Resident Evil Requiem is shaking things up for the long-running series. Now that I've played 3 hours of it, I can tell you it is honoring the two sides of the series' style. The slow, methodical resource management side of its roots, which were elevated with Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 2 Remake, and on the other side, the tense action ballet of Resident Evil 4 Remake. But still, many surprises lay ahead, including some notable changes to both tried and true playstyles that are bound to keep even the most veteran fans on their toes. So, here are the biggest changes Resident Evil Requiem is bringing to the series that I noticed from my hands-on time with the game. Zombies, the festering, beating heart of the franchise. The gurgling, shuffling corpses are making a return, but this time with a little elevation to shake things up. And it is awesome. Zombies now talk. Having spoken with Requiem's director, Koshi Nakanishi, he told me that this new breed of infected who recently succumbed to their viral infection retain some of their lingering personalities, and in the process, yap away. One encounter I loved were two zombies shuffling together, spouting fragmented words and nonsense to one another, as if habitually doing something they once did when alive. A little old zombie chat. Now, talking zombies isn't entirely new to the franchise, but never has it been put front and center like it is here. Zombies being able to talk goes as far back as its first and seminal entry, Resident Evil 1 in 1996. When exploring the mansion, you can find the Keeper's Diary, which documents someone in the process of becoming a zombie. The last entry being nothing but two iconic words, itchy, tasty. What was itchy? Was it the itch that was tasty? The other notable instance of a zombie talking is in Resident Evil 3 Remake, with poor old Brad who, in zombie form, says sorry before taking a bite out of poor old Marvin. Sorry! Zombie behaviors. The inclusion of their personalities means that characteristics of who they once were carry over too, and, as a result, have design implications when coming toe-to-toe with them. Meaning, each zombie encounter will differ in some subtle and not subtle ways, making each run-in bespoke. A cleaner, for example, can be found cleaning blood maniacally in a bathroom. If you choose to spare her when you first meet her, there's a strong chance you'll run into her later roaming the halls finding other messes to clean. But then, there's the hulking cook you meet in the kitchen, carrying on his routine to prepare dinner. Grace Ashcroft is what's for dinner tonight. If you sneak past them, you risk running into him later too, and let me tell you, he's no zombie pushover like the others. This implies that zombies will differ in challenge based on their body types and personalities. The singing, dancing woman who twirls around and around. If she sees you, she'll unleash a deafening scream, alerting other zombies of your presence. This zombie type came from someone who was labeled with main character syndrome, according to a doctor's note that can be found in the asylum. Zombies also have an array of weapons contextual to what they were doing when they were changed. A zombie upstairs was clearly hitting the bottle hard that night with a wine bottle in hand. In another case, a patient was armed with an IV pole. The inclusion of their personalities has given way to giving the zombie archetype a ton of variety and context unseen in previous Resident Evil games. I think it absolutely rules, and I cannot wait to see how it evolves throughout the game. Killed zombies can now provide a valuable resource that Grace needs for crafting resources. And this is a change I consider to be a pretty big shakeup for the series. Traditionally, killing zombies in previous games, notably the survival-focused ones like 1 through 3, Veronica and the like, provide no reward. Instead, choosing to kill a zombie was a cost of resources in exchange for a chance of survival. The risk-reward of choosing to tiptoe around a zombie. The reward, not wasting resources. The risk of having to encounter them again later. As is the opposite, the reward of not being attacked at the risk of not having enough resources to survive a later encounter. In Requiem, however, killing zombies as Grace provides blood, which can be used to craft ammunition and other much-needed resources. Don't ask me to make sense of it, I can't help you with that. Anyways, that also goes for collecting blood from all sorts of dubious places like buckets of mopped up blood or even blood baths. Still, with that comes its own juggle. The syringe itself to collect blood takes up space in Grace's already very limited inventory. It also takes time to suck it up, creating a risk-reward in trying to do so when enemies are around. But, like other resources in the game, the blood deposits you leave behind are automatically mapped on your map to retrieve at a later time. Crafting in general is just different. In previous games, notably Resident Evil 4 Remake and Resident Evil Village, crafting recipes were purchased from the game's merchant. For Grace, however, learning new recipes to craft is a more layered process that plays into many aspects of the game's design, like inventory management and some additional puzzle solving. And just as a heads up, Capcom did not provide any gameplay of this, so I'll do my best to describe it. In Requiem, Grace will find lab samples scattered around in the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center. These tubes, in turn, take up valuable inventory space, as they must be processed at a special machine in the facility. Upon reaching a dedicated machine to identify the sample, Grace is then required to solve a rather simple puzzle by interacting with molecules until doing so in a correct pattern. While the first of these puzzles was a total cakewalk, preceding samples actually became quite challenging. Once solved, Grace is rewarded with a new crafting recipe. The whole ordeal just adds another layer of friction in an already stressful scenario, but hey, that's what we love, right? While stealth was an element of Resident Evil 7 hiding from the Baker family and used sparingly in Village, whether it was avoiding Lady Dimitrescu or the House of Beneviento Baby, stealth is an integral part of Grace's section and is interwoven in her gameplay more than previous installments. In Resident Evil 4 Remake and its expansion, Separate Ways, its stealth segments felt rather on rails and scripted, leaving little creativity to the player. But that isn't the case for Grace, as she has a lot of options to deal with the situation, like throwing glass bottles or playing to specific characteristics of a zombie like the one who hates light. There's other environmental tricks too, like tapping the keys of a piano to distract a group of zombies or shattering a pot. Additionally, Grace can't perform silent takedowns unless she's armed with a powerful purple syringe, which one-shot kills many lowly zombies. However, it is a massive waste of a valuable and rare resource best saved for the big baddies, or when put in a dire run-out-of-choices situation. Move over, Lady D, Mr. X, and the Baker family. There's a whole new crew keeping Grace on her toes. And I mean a crew. Based on what we played, there's a rootin' tootin' gang of ghoulies wandering around these halls, and more frequently, with fresh twists. First, there was the big-eyed lady hunchin' and lurkin' in the shadows. Then, there's this big boy, who is more or less a walking physical wall, squeezing its way through anything it can fit through to get its hands on you. So who knows what else is waiting for Grace or Leon? It's like if Lady D, the Beneviento Baby, and Nemesis were put into one game and set loose all at once. Yeah, alright. Oof. While having multiple protagonists isn't new to the series, what is new is Requiem's approach to the jarring contrast of playstyles. So quick spoiler alert, as I am about to talk about the end of Resident Evil Village, so I'll give you a second to skip to the next timestamp. Like right now. Anyway, sure, Village sort of did this at the very end where you step into the boots of Chris Redfield and go all Call of Duty on that place. But that is a burp of a moment compared to Requiem's approach with how the game trades off between Grace and Leon. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention Revelations 1 and 2, which switch between characters frequently. But little did the playstyle or even design philosophy change as much as it does in Requiem. Grace and Leon feel truly and uniquely different, with Grace leading into Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7 in terms of combat, inventory, and pacing, while Leon being distinctly an evolution of Resident Evil 4. Switching to Leon is like a sigh of relief, and suddenly having his enormous inventory and chainsaw-wielding arms after sneaking around as Grace with her limited inventory and wobbly aim. Leon's got some new tools. Leon is clearly peak midlife crisis. The Porsche and the Hamilton watch say it all. What are you compensating for, Leon? You have nothing to worry about. Your fancy car and watch don't define you. Anyway, he's got a hatchet now, which essentially replaces his knife. Like the knife, it can be used to deflect and parry and stop chainsaws, of course. It also has durability, but unlike the knife, it doesn't break and doesn't require being repaired by a merchant. Instead, Leon's got a sharpening block in his pocket to get the thing back into shape, at the cost of making sure to do it at the right time. Sort of Lies of P style. But there's still a few questions surrounding it, however. First, it appears that sharpening it is not resource dependent. At least when looking at Leon's inventory space, there's no discernible item matching a sharpening block, potentially implying that Leon could just keep wailing with this thing as long as he can find a safe corner to keep sharpening it. That also means Leon likely won't be picking up any additional lives to help him in a bind like he did in Resident Evil 4 Remake, though that mechanic is still a thing that exists for Grace. Also, unlike the knife, the hatchet has bespoke takedowns, and based on looking at it in Leon's inventory, has 2 upgradable slots. What those entail, time will tell. That's right, Leon can finally shoot the chainsaw out of an enemy's hands and pick it up himself to use. And let me tell you, it leads to absolute hysterical chaos. Yes, it is OP. It is a chainsaw, but there's still a risk reward in using it. For starters, when a zombie drops it, the chainsaw spins wildly out of control, harming both Leon and zombies until it slows down. However, it then becomes a race for Leon to snag it before another zombie does. There was even a case where I shot a zombie's feet out who was holding it, only for them to fall and be dragged across the floor holding it. It was great. It isn't always a one-shot kill, too, as ramming a zombie with a chainsaw can cause them to wobble off with it stuck running in their chest. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and I kind of wish Capcom provided footage, but you just have to believe me. It's great. Lastly, the chainsaw plays into level progression, acting as a key to saw through barred doors, and in the process, breaking the chainsaw and stopping Leon from going everywhere with it. Lame. Just kidding. This is Leon's first new campaign in 14 years. Seriously, that is kind of wild. While we've seen plenty of Leon over the last 7 years, Resident Evil Requiem is the first new storyline for Leon, at least in the games, since Resident Evil 6. Requiem is the official bridging of the remakes into the modern mainline series, making it something of a trilogy for the old hunk. Not to be confused with, like, the hunk in the Resident Evil series, like I'm talking about Leon being a hunk. But not that hunk. From a little old rookie cop to a roundhouse government agent to now a veteran counter-bioterrorist agent. I've seen a lot of folks saying that they're leaning into Leon's Resident Evil 6, but I assure you, he's not diving and crawling around on his back like he was in that game, that was a lot. We're here today with the Leon that we have now, and it's great. Alright, so those are the biggest changes we know of so far in the Resident Evil series that are coming with the release of Requiem. We're doing loads of Resident Evil Requiem coverage, so please make sure to check out the channel, subscribe, all that jazz, or just keep an eye out. I've already done a hands-on video that you should also check out, that I give a little bit more kind of context and detail in the moment-to-moment that happened during the 3.5-ish hours that I played the game. So yeah, alright, cool, thanks. Alright, see ya, bye.